We're in Linkage this week, World Cup number 5, Downhill World Cup number 5. And today is track walk day for DH. It's typically our busiest day of the week for downhill racers and teams. So we're mostly boxer and rear shock service. Setups typically aren't too much different for our pro riders. They tend to keep the same settings throughout the year, unless there's something extreme. So we're kind of waiting to see what the weather does. But a big thing today is all these riders have been hanging out in Morzine and in the area for the last, since Val di Sole, whatever that is, 3 weeks, just absolutely hammering their bikes. So we're seeing a lot more dirt and things like that in the product, and full freshen up on everything for everybody. And yeah, busy day. Fork setup all comes down to their mechanics, but custom tuning gets done here. You know, we may be working on something in the background that we'll bring to the riders. Otherwise, yeah, if they have a change they want to make, that's something we might work on in-house based on their feedback.
If it rains this week, what's going to change?
Nothing. It's going to be dry. It's not raining this week.
I'm Mark Sturland, the head mechanic of MS Racing, and this is the new E13 Sidekick Hub. It's essentially the easiest way of explaining it is it's like a clutch, so it disengages the entire drive system from the suspension when you stop pedaling. I mean, you hear a lot of talk about pedal kickback and other associated problems with drivetrain interfering with suspension. Yeah, by removing the drivetrain from the suspension system, you can have the suspension working more freely, and you remove any of the negative impacts of the chain system from the suspension. So pedal kickback being one of them. It's also a lot quieter, you get a lot less chain slap. Yeah, so we've had this hub now for two and a bit years. And one of the things we've been able to do is use the BYB telemetry system. And then we've really been able to analyse exactly what it's doing to the suspension by obviously testing the hub against the normal hub in various situations. Another great benefit of the hub is essentially once the hub engages, it completely disengages the free hub system, so you get a lot less drag in the system, so basically the bike rolls faster.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of modification in Val di Sole, cut a piece of the linkage, just with a hacksaw. So it's more of a connecting piece removed to sort of try and get some more movement in the linkage itself. Coming into the Linkage race, I had more time at home in my own workshop. I've removed some material from the chainstay yoke and from the seat stay as well. And then I've also been more of a professional job on the linkage, just milled the piece out, got all parts all repainted and that sort of thing. I'm trying to add some compliance and flex into the rear triangle, but at the same time I'm trying to add some stiffness between the rear hub and the brake mount. Generally the hub will flex between on the rear axle between the dropouts. It's there in all bikes, you know, there's flex between the hub and the brake mount, so you end up with some extra drag or pad pushback. So I removed the sort of little hood from the chainstay. I've made a special flange, so it went from the standard 19mm to a 30mm flange, so it's really rigid between the hub itself and the brake mount. I'm trying to add the compliance in the rear triangle, but I'm trying to sort of lock in the hub to the brake mount to remove that unwanted movement between the brake mount and the disc.
My name's Matt, and I work for the Giant Factory Off-Road team, and I work one-on-one with Remy Meyer-Smith. I think as a team mechanic, we're pretty lucky because we get to focus our efforts and our tools on specific sponsors or specific product. You're a bike shop, you don't know what's going to come in the door. We know exactly what's going to be on the bikes every time we get to work on them. So we can streamline the things we have in our toolbox and really try and make the most of the space that we have.
So if you were to pick your favorite 5 things, what would they be?
In the toolbox, quarter drive ratchet, Abbey Bike Tools derailleur hanger alignment gauge, PB Swift screwdrivers, and hex drivers. I've got a set of Knipex pliers that were machine thinner, so they get access to a lot of stuff. These are, a friend of mine had these machined down, so they're nice and thin. I think everyone out here has a set of these in one size or another. I've got a few different sizes in the box there. I think one that's really, maybe it's not really a tool, is I've got a little magnetic mat that I put stuff on. That one will fall off and that'll fall off, but
That's pretty sweet.
yeah, it doesn't take up much space in the toolbox, and it's a nice little thing to be able to organize with. Park tool magnetic cups, just working in a parking lot, kind of nice to to not have to be able to search around for fasteners in our grass pit space we have this weekend. Abbey Bike Tools, their T-Way is pretty cool. And this one's set up where I've got the chance to, the 6mm fixed in the short end there, and then magnets in the other two. And they come with a full assortment of Weir bits along with it. I started out working in a shop, and 1/4-inch ratchets were just something that were on every one of the workbenches, and this is, for me, probably, I use this more than any of my other hex keys in there. 2, red color everybody knows really well now. Level 3. And then level 4 buried down at the bottom.
This year's been a challenge generally because we kind of been playing catch up from minute one, but you know, we did, because Fort William was quite early, we didn't do any races before Fort William, so we came in like, we'd done lots of prep, but there's no prep for racing like racing, so we felt a little bit off the back, or I did, in terms of where the bike is, but we've got a good base set up now, and depending on the sort of profile of the track, we adjust from that either way. We made quite a few drastic changes from in the first few, but definitely a more settled setup from Val di Sole to this one. Obviously Val di Sole's a little bit different to here, so a few track related changes, but the bike generally is the same, just a different colour. It's a funny one here, isn't it? It's quite a tricky track. It can be a bit awkward, I think, to ride. They tend to put in some like awkward bus stops and off cambers and stuff like that, so we'll walk it tomorrow and have a chat and decide what to do, I think.
We are here in Linkage. It's track walk day, and for us that means we're servicing all the forks and shocks for all the athletes. Between the two fork technicians we'll probably service 50 forks today, so 25 each. If it's busy, maybe 30 each, but a modest estimate would be 25 each. Most forks we do just a lower service, so we take the lowers off, we take out the foam rings, we give them a clean, we put fresh foam rings, fresh grease, and then rebuild them with fresh oil. If there's any issues, we'll maybe open up the air side, or we'll service the damper, but for the most part we don't need to do that, so it's just a very quick service, and it's usually about 15 minutes a fork. I try and aim for 15 minutes a fork. 4 forks an hour is the aim, but sometimes if it's more complicated, 1 fork will take longer. To be honest, because we see them so often, they're never usually that bad. If maybe there's been a few weeks off and everyone's been riding in Morzine for a few weeks, they're a little bit more dirty. But yeah, because we see them so often, actually it's a very quick, straightforward thing. The oil isn't even that dirty. Sometimes if a privateer turns up with a broken fork or a broken shock, then that's a different story. But yeah, the factory, our main teams, it's kind of just a quick clean up, a bit quick freshen up, and you hope that you don't have anything too serious to deal with. And classic, this one is more complicated because one of the guys, when they've been doing the changing the volume spacers, they've wrecked the top cap, so it will be a bit more complicated and it'll take a little bit longer.
I hear you. So my name is Pascal, I'm working for Gamux, I'm the head mechanic, and also I'm a co-owner of the company. We're here in Linkage and prepping for the World Cup. So first of all, it's having a gearbox with a belt drive system, so that's very different. There's only one other bike here that uses the same drivetrain stuff, which is the C-Road. And then we do use CNC machining for our frame construction, and then bond in below these tapes carbon tubes into the CNC structure to alternate torsional stiffness of the frame and make it more specific towards our riders' needs. There's 2 main advantages. One is reliability, so we have nothing to like smash off. That makes it much more reliable in terms of, yeah, you can't really snap a belt, you can't really tear off a derailleur, stuff like this. And then the second thing is like weight distribution and unsprung versus sprung mass. So since we're removing a cassette, a derailleur from the rear wheel and putting all the weight down into the center of the bike, our weight distribution is much lower down. So the bike is sort of a similar effect to when you go on an e-bike. It sort of wants to stick to the ground and smash through stuff rather than to hop on top, which is great when grip conditions are not ideal. And it's also very good for carrying speed through rough sections. And then also we have like 600 to 800 grams, depending on whatever setup you're using, less unsprung weight, which helps the rear wheel move out of the way much quicker and also stabilize the bike. So with all the teams or some teams strapping lead plates to their bottom rackets, that just sort of underlines the point we're making with gearboxes.
I like Ligier. I feel like we just spent like 2 weeks in Morzine just riding, and this whole area is pretty awesome. It just feels really good to be in the mountains, and like I wouldn't say it reminds me of home, but like having the bike parks all around just is sort of like what I used to do as a kid, go and ride Whistler bike parks. So to be able to ride Morzine, Morjan, I mean, I was in Chamonix for a week, rode here one day, and like it's just cool to be back here. And like this race has so much heritage. I mean, a lot of French heritage, but it has a lot of heritage, and I think this year seems like they've made some changes to the track. I don't know about the weather, but if it rains, if it's sunny, whatever, should be good. Like watching Amaury the first time he won here was pretty incredible, and then Loic winning Worlds by like, I don't know, it was like 3 seconds or something like that was pretty crazy. And then last year Benoit going 1-1-1 across the whole weekend was pretty incredible as well. And I think that the French guys winning here just brings out more of a crowd. So I think this year, hopefully we get as much as we did last year, and we can have a different winner that's not French.
Are you looking to be the man to break that streak?
I mean, I would like to be, but we'll see. We'll go out this week, ride as well as I can, and hopefully that's enough to put me on top step. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that every race. I'd like to beat all the French guys. So hopefully, yeah.